everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with a track guide for the daily race B that is on this week at Nürburgring GP track, driving the Group 3 car. So for this track guide, I've decided to use a car that I've never really used before, the Audi R8, as it is probably the most overpowered car for this track and the most commonly used in the time trial. It's probably going to get you the best results once you're used to the characteristics of this car. Now, like I say, this is a car I've never really driven before, and I think once you start learning how to drive this car, you will enjoy how it handles. It's just, you really do need to get used to it. And just bear in mind though, this track guide is for daily race B. In race conditions, when your tyres start wearing, this car is not quite as good as it is for a mode where there's no tyre wear. However, if you're running realistic tyre wear, this Audi is going to be extremely strong at a track like Nürburgring Group 3 GP track in the Group 3 cars. I think it's a gearing, a lot of the gearing suits the track. It's got a very high and long first gear, which really does help it bite into some of the slower corners. But it does require some very careful and patient driving to get the most out of it. Now, this lap that we did here wasn't particularly the most amazing lap. I did have the potential to get a 54 point. I think it eventually got down to a 54.8 or 54.9, something like that. But this lap ended up being a 1 minute 55.2, which is in the top 10. I think it was P6 when I did it. It's probably dropping down the order as the day goes on. Obviously, that does normally happen on the second day, but it's still an okay lap that I wanted to get out as a track guide and try and run through some of the braking points and some of the tips for this car, as it really has got some quirks, this car. One thing I have found with this car is it really likes to be coasted through corners, so try and be like really gentle on the brakes and then just let it coast through some of the areas, which I'm going to show you as we come through the lap. As you can see, starting your lap, we have got the slipper cam on there. I did have to use the slippers. The socks that I got, the red ones, were too slippery, so I had to put the big slippers on there, which are actually really comfortable for doing sim racing as we go into the first corner. And we're going to brake just before the 100 board. Now, you can see there, the little bit of tarmac on the left hand side is where I used to kind of judge my braking distance. Down into second gear, then as we go into first gear, we're going to turn in. You'll watch the steering inputs going as I go down into first gear. It's going to go down as we come off there, down into first gear, turn into the corner. You really want to clip the apex of that corner, a little bit off of the apex, but we nearly hit it perfectly. And now your aim is to get it over to the right hand side as quickly as possible, whilst putting the power down so that you can swing it into this left hand corner. And what you're going to see now is how I just lift off. I'm not going to put too much braking input, a tiny bit of braking input there, not much at all. And then we're just going to lift off everything and just let it coast, and then a little bit of acceleration input into the throttle, just to try and build the speed up as we come out the exit, and then maximum throttle as we approach the next braking zone. Early on the brakes, you see there, we're not going to push the braking too aggressive, because this car does have a tendency to swing out. And down into first gear, you can see that really high first gear really helps it out. And now what you're going to notice through this corner is, already I'm putting a little bit of throttle in. This helps stabilize the car a little bit, just about 20% throttle, not too much, just enough just to stabilize the car as we go through that really tight left hand corner. And now you're going to swing it into this right hand corner and take as much off this corner as you possibly can. You'll see there, really attack the apex of the corner and get your left hand tire basically to run the white line is where the track limits are. Anything more and you will get a track limit penalty. And we run a little bit wide out there and lose a bit of acceleration where we don't quite hook it up. We run a little bit wide, the car gets a little bit unstable, but we still go through that first sector on quite a competitive time. Now braking as the tarmac, you see on the tarmac for the sprint track ends, we're braking just before the end of that, down into third gear, and try and get very close to this apex because of the camber on this corner. You don't want to run out far to the right hand side, because you want to be swinging it in to this next right hand. You see, I'm already trying to get it over to the left hand side as much as possible so that we're improving the angle into this right hand corner. And again, you want to try and stay as close to the apex again because of the camber on this corner. You can see I actually run wide. That arrow is where I would have liked to take the racing line, but because I kind of messed it up a little bit, we've gone a little bit wide and we've had to be a little bit more patient on the throttle. So I've probably lost a tenth or so there, maybe more. You can see how much the ghost has caught me off because I just couldn't get the angle into that corner, which was my fault. I went in too aggressive. Now into the next braking zone, just as that tarmac starts on the left hand side, we're going to brake just past that, down through the gears. You're going to down into second gear, and you can see I like to stay very narrow into this apex. You really want to try and bite it in. You will naturally run out a little bit wide through this corner. You see how we're starting to run wide, but again, I'm trying to keep it narrow, and then I can put the full power in. And you might have to give it a little lift off the throttle. You've seen that little gradual lift because I could sense the rears were going to slide. However, we do that middle sector on quite a nice competitive time. And now this corner, you really have to be aggressive. Use the full width for the track. Your right-hand tyre is where them arrows are, and you're not going to lift through this corner. You're aiming to get your left-hand tyre over the curb on the left-hand side. I did this a little bit too early. I turned in marginally too early there. I would have rather have been the left-hand tyre. I would have rather the left-hand tyre to be where that arrow is. But notice no lifting off the throttle as we run over this slightly onto the gravel, but just about get away with that without a corner cut. Probably lost a little bit of time though as I ran over the gravel, and it slows you down. Now into the next braking zone, pretty much as that darker part of the grey tarmac on the right hand side starts, that's when we're going to go onto the brakes just before that 100. Down again into third gear, and just watch this. We're going to really try and go from the wide angle and clip the left-hand tyre on that green bit of Astro there. You really want to get your left-hand tyre onto that, because that will help rotate the car through this corner. You can actually get on the power really early. You can see we're on maximum throttle already and accelerating out the corner and trying to swing it to the left-hand side to chuck it into this fast right-hand corner. You can see again, tiny bit of braking input, not too aggressive though. You don't want to be aggressive on the brakes there. It will send the it will distribute the weight a little bit to the rear and you will lose the rear, so you want to be really gentle on that. Down into second gear and then early upshift into third and accelerate out this corner. Use the full width for the track again. Just be cautious not to run it onto the gravel. You will obviously lose time if you do that. Now going into probably the most tricky and the corner the set of corners where you will gain or lose the most amount of time. Braking just before the 100. You really have to be quite aggressive on the downshifting and braking. You've got to get as close to 100 as possible. Down into second gear, and you really have to try and cut this kind of... You'll see there, you want to get your left-hand tyre over there and just try and straight line this as much as possible. Now, my mistake is I went a little bit too aggressive, missed the apex on the first part, and then I kind of have to square the car off and I lose quite a bit of time there. You can see the Ghost has caught me right up there. From being way ahead, it's actually caught right up to the rear of my car. I've lost about a tenth or 2 tenths there. Now for this corner, again, I like to keep it very, very tight into the apex of the corner. Again, if you run wide, you have to be more patient on the throttle. So if you keep it narrow, you can get on the throttle a lot early. You can see we've got about 50% throttle in at this point, keeping it narrow to the apex and then full throttle there. You can see, try and hold full throttle all the way through the corner, just about managing it. And then we actually pulled away from the Ghost slightly there. You can see we're pulling away because we did that final corner a little bit better and go over the line on a 1 minute 55.2. Now, that we did lose about 2 tenths on the chicane, which was a little bit frustrating because I think there was about a 54.9 if I would have hooked that chicane up and would have put me in the 54s. However, I only spent about 45 minutes in total doing this because I got bored after. I can't sit there and do time trial too much. It gets repetitive for me. So I got this lap in and thought I'm going to start working on the track guide. I think this lap will do. We're going to watch this lap from the chase camera anyway, just for people that obviously use the pad and the chase camera, just to see the lines a little bit more in detail. You can see the full width of the car and how I'm talking about. You've just got to keep just about in the limits on that corner, right hand corner. We ran a little bit wide out of that in the next part, which did lose us a bit of time, but you can see again, very tight into that apex, you see, and then swinging it. You can really see how we're swinging it in from one side to the other side. And you can see there how we didn't square that car off enough because we actually were a little bit too aggressive on the braking. We should have braked maybe a fraction earlier and would have been able to rotate the car more. And again, you'll see now on this corner, we start going wide, but then just be very patient, then full throttle, a little lift off the throttle, and then back on there, all the way into this really fast flat out section where you do not lift. It's completely flat all the way through that corner. We did lose a bit of time as we ran on the gravel, but not a massive amount of time. But hopefully what we'll see now is the main area where I lost time was on the chicane because I went too aggressively into it. It's really hard to pick your braking. You've got to be as late as possible on the brakes going into the chicane. However, if your fraction's too late, you tend to lose time on the exit as you can't get on the power, and that's what happens to us. So don't take enough off the first part. If you have a little look at the first part of the chicane, our left hand tyre doesn't really cut enough off. You see we actually hook it up pretty much perfect the first part if you were doing proper track limits, but then because of that I can't really get the car squared off on the exit of the second part and we lose a bit of time on acceleration. So a little bit of time there lost, maybe a tenth or 2. Final corner we did reasonably well. We kept on the power and went over the line, and it's a decent lap. Anyway, I'm going to let you watch the lap full speed with the cameras, the two cameras on, so you can watch it all in real time rather than slow-mo. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you out. Let me know in the comment section if anything's helped you out, if it's improved your lap time. I do like reading the comments. I will be back with more of these. Obviously, I've done this one again. We're going to try and go through them all. Obviously, the physics model has changed now. We're using the extra cameras for input, so you can actually see a little bit more detail about what I'm doing. I've changed the lighting on the pedal camera with brighter, obviously, slippers and socks. I know the slippers are not probably the most attractive thing to look at, but they're comfy for me to race in, and I actually like, with the socks on their own, they were too slippery. I'm going to try and get some red, thicker socks with grips on the bottom to try and do these videos with, but for now, that will have to do with the slippers on. So I hope it's okay. Let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed the video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it also, and I'll be back with more of these track guides over the next weeks, etc., as they change tracks, mainly doing Group 3, Group 4 and Group 2, etc., and sometimes Group 1. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I'll be back very soon with more streams and videos, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks again, everyone.